my first question is like, what inspired you to become a filmmaker? Why you choose to become a filmmaker, sir?
Um, there wouldn't be a one point answer to that maybe from me, uh, saying okay, this is exactly what made me to choose to be a filmmaker. But what I can tell you is uh, the journey began from, like with most cases, from being an audience to being curious about how this is done, to wanting to tell a story, to then, okay, how do we tell a story, and then ending up being a filmmaker. Uh, so I think the beginnings would be to be, to like listening to stories, then wanting to tell your own story, and eventually ending up here. Uh, yeah, but if you were to ask me, say, 10 years before, uh, and if you were to ask me, would you want to be a filmmaker, I would have said no. Uh, so maybe 2007, 2006, 2007. Uh, After watching a lot of films, getting exposed to different kinds of cinema, there was this thought that, oh, why can't we shoot something like that, or why can't we do something like that? So that led to trying our hands out at making short films. So me and a friend of mine, we had this, he had a handycam where you record on the mini DV tape. And so we did that, uh, try to transfer that footage onto the computer, try to stitch it together. That was exciting, just to see what it does. You put a layer of sound on that, you put music on that. It becomes interesting. So then one short film led to another, then to another. But then films was never in the question. I never thought that I would want to make a feature film. Uh, I was in IT. I worked with TCS for 4.5 years. I'm an engineer. Uh, so then I decided that, this is not interesting anymore. So me and this friend of mine, we decided to set up a multimedia company. We thought, we'll do branding, we'll do logo designs, we'll do, print design, web design also. We've done all of that. And we said in between all this, we'll try to do some video work, maybe ads, maybe corporate videos, product videos, product photo shoots. So that was the journey. So then we set up that company. And while working towards all of the work that came in with that, we realized that we were shooting very less. The whole point of starting that company was to try and shoot often, more often, and get paid for it. But that wasn't happening. And then there came a time where, there was interesting films happening around us. And then we saw that, maybe the OTTs were opening up a space for different kinds of stories to be told. And we thought maybe this is the time to try our hands at it. So that is when me and my friend again got back into, making a short film again. Let's try to do a short film again. So he did his short film. I was supposed to do my short film, which eventually became this feature. So this was a short film that eventually became a feature.
Um, uh, Great, sir, great. And you have studied BTech, sir? You've done BTech?
BTech, yes. I did BTech. I'm a mechanical engineer. Then I went into IT, out of college straight into IT. And yeah, then, like I said, what followed.
Actually, I myself is a web developer. I work in IT.
Yes, you did mention that. And when you said that, I thought, okay, we've been there.
Okay. So, sir, did you study any film school?
No, I have no film school experience.
Or have you assisted? Have you assisted someone before
Uh,
making
no, I
Abra?
no, I haven't. Before making Abracadabra, I haven't assisted anyone on a feature film. So this friend of mine that I spoke about, uh, with whom I used to do short films, uh, He was also my business partner, and Sumant Bhatt, he went on to make the film Mithya, which played at Mami in the South Asia competition. So he did a short film. So previously we used to do our short films together. So then, after the advertising agency, the multimedia firm, we decided to try out our hands separately. So I helped him out on his short film. So that is the only experience I had in direction before I did Abracadabra.
Sir, how the idea came for Abracadabra? As you mentioned, you have done a short film, so you could tell everything about the idea, sir.
Abracadabra, again, it didn't come from one single point saying, this is what the story is going to be about. Or there wasn't a moment where I thought, okay, uh, this is the film I'm going to do. Uh, uh, I did my engineering from Bangalore, and then I worked with TCS again in Bangalore. So I had a good, 9 to 10 years of stay in Bangalore, where I had moved away from my hometown, which is Udupi. So once we set up our company, we moved back. Like I moved back into Udupi, and moving around town, what I realized that the town had changed in the 10 years that I was away. So all of that was playing on my mind, and there were all these little things that were happening around you that kind of over a period of time started piling on top of each other. So initially was the idea, it was the film, it was the idea of a short film that was set in one lane. So it was three or four different people living in one lane, and how they identify them, or it was about geographical identity, how they associate themselves with that lane, someone who's lived on that lane for years together from the time of her father, to someone who has just moved in a few months back, to someone who is maybe moving out of that street. So this was where the idea was born. And then in the ideation, in sketching out who these people were and what their backgrounds were, the story started developing. And all these other things that were influencing me at that time started creeping into the story. Um, so it came from many places. The film came from many places. And because when I wrote it, I was not full time into filmmaking. I took my time writing it. I was writing in phases. So the story uh, kept building up over a period of time. It came in like months apart. Like one of the characters would be sorted, and 2 months later, I would think, this character would meet this character here. This might happen. Uh, so it was a spread out process. If you were to ask me, how did Abracadabra exactly, how did the idea exactly come? So then, of course, it being a short film, it eventually built up into a feature film in the same way.
Okay. Sir, how much time it took to like complete the script? Like only writing process.
Like I said, I wasn't writing it full time when I wrote it. So the short film took me a good, few drafts of the short film took me a good 6 months, I think. And then from that to a feature took me another whole year to a decent draft of the feature film. And then COVID happened, the first wave. Then there was a couple of rounds of rewriting again. So it was spread out, but effectively, I would say about a year and a half to.
And sir, what was your experience while shooting it? Were you nervous?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. And more so because, like I said, I didn't have feature film experience. I hadn't been on a set where there were so many people around, and so the nervousness was that am I doing things right? And you know that every department is looking towards you for instructions, and that nervousness was surely there. And I think I'll only know when I do my second one, if it's gotten better or if it is still there.
Okay. Sir, how like long was the shooting process? How many days?
Um, we shot in two schedules. The first schedule was 30 days. We shot it in Udupi. And then the second schedule was, I think, close to 13 or 15 days, which we shot in Bangalore.
And sir, what was the post production? How long it took to
The
take film?
post-production took us a while. We spent some time on the edit. We weren't very uh, uh, convinced uh, about the edit for a while till the third or fourth draft. We were still we were trying to find the right rhythm for the film. Uh, the whole the edit, the sound and everything, I think it took us a good 6 7 months to wrap all of that. Uh, yeah, good 7 to 8 months with the DI and all included.
Sir, if you could tell a little bit about the story of Abracadabra.
The story, Abracadabra, of course, is the magic chant, like, Chumantar, similarly, Abracadabra. And the story has a magician, which is why the title comes into place. But the title also comes into place because what we are trying to do with the film is we are trying to look at these four lives that are lived almost, in very close proximity to each other, uh, with but still suffering, with each of the characters not realizing the conflict that the next one is going through. So I thought that was interesting of these people still living next to each other but not knowing exactly what is happening with each other. So the film is that it's like a mosaic that you put these pieces next to each other, and there's this pattern that emerges. So the film explores that. It explores patterns. It explores similarities and conflicts that the characters might have, but also it explores how differently they might deal with it, or how at different junctures in their life or in different contexts they are faced with maybe similar situations or similar challenges. So it is that it is this is this exploration, or is this trying to look at these lives by placing them next to each other.
Sir, while making it, what was the most difficult challenge?
Uh, I think it would be the spread of the film for me. When I say the spread of the film, I would say, one, the number of characters the film had. Like, of course, you're following four main uh, protagonists or characters through the film. So what that does is that gives you only so many scenes to work with to build up the arc and resolve a character. Uh, and because we are exploring how disjoint these lives are, uh, you know, uh, very rarely do you see all of them or two of them interacting with each other. Of course, they do, but then, it's still parallel tracks. Uh, so to get that rhythm and flow right of going from one character to another while still not being jumpy, and then having all these, other smaller characters also come in. So the smaller characters of one story here don't interact in the large sense with the smaller characters of the other tracks. So, they still had to be there. They still had to be fleshed out. In the little scenes that they get, we had to establish who they are and how they influence the main character. So that way, the spread of characters, I think, was a challenge. And then again, because these were across uh, locations, different locations. The spread of locations also was a challenge because we were jumping. Uh, the film jumps a lot. The film that jumps a lot, but it still had to look like one piece. I think that was the biggest challenge.
Sir, is it screening anywhere right now?
Not right now. We are not on any OTT right now. Uh, we'll be traveling two festivals. We just had our first festival, that is our premiere at Bangalore International Film Festival. We were in the Chitrabharati competition section, the Indian cinema competition section. Um, so from there, we have to see how it pans out from there.
Sir, as a filmmaker, seeing your film in a big screen, how does it feel, sir?
Oh, it was a much needed experience actually. You know, more so because it made me realize uh, how community viewing changes the audience experience. Um, to I go into theaters, but then there is a lot of these this say world cinema that you catch on laptops or on the TV, uh, and you're watching it alone with earphones on, and you forget what an audience viewing can do. And for me, that was the biggest takeaway, just to watch, all of them sit and respond to the film at places where you weren't sure that it would evoke a response, where people were, kind of laughing out a little louder than you anticipated. You knew that it was because of the community experience. So
Sir, are
that
you
was the biggest takeaway.
okay. Sir, are you writing something or shooting something, doing any future projects?
I'm not shooting anything right now, like I mentioned. I am writing a couple of things. There's one screenplay that is already written, which I'm reworking. And then there's this other idea that I'm kind of making notes about, just trying to figure out where I want to take it and, what exactly I'll be talking about.
Okay. Sir, if somebody wants to assist you become your AD, so how they can approach you, sir?
They can reach out to me. I mean, if they can grab my email ID or phone number from somewhere, great. Or I'm on Instagram. That is the only social media presence I have. So they can reach out to me there.
Mm, okay. Sir, what are the qualities you look in an AD?
I think for filmmaking or cinema, uh, it needs you need to be crazy. You need to want to do it badly, and especially in the direction department, because I know only that. It's tough work, especially if you're an AD. It's a thankless job. Uh, so the first thing that an AD should have as a quality is that drive, that passion to say, I want to do this.
Sir, any favorite films and filmmakers which have inspired you, sir?
Uh, yeah. Like I said, I it would be, unjust to rate it, say this being one, two, or three. But there have been many films that have stayed with me. For me, any film that leaves an aftertaste uh, is a good film, and there are so many of them that you keep going back to. You want to watch it again after a few years, and then it gives you something else than what it gave you, say, 5 years back or 6 years back. So it would be a long list, and at different phases, I've been going through or watching different set of films. Uh, but but also when I say I like a filmmaker, uh, it's also not been the case where I like all the films of a filmmaker. Also, I haven't watched, say, the full filmography of a director. That has never happened. I would watch two or three films, then I would move on to someone else. So that is more the case with me. But say a film like I love The Godfather 1, 2. I love Godfather 1, 2. I love Apocalypse Now. and all of these are Francis Ford Coppola. I love Christopher Nolan's films. Um, I love Once Upon a Time in Anatolia, and then of course, I watched two or three of Akira Kurosawa's films, and I love them. A couple of Bergman films. Uh, Eight and a Half is a lovely film that I'd watched way before, and then I happened to watch it just before I went in to shoot Abracadabra, and then it hit me differently. The film meant something else suddenly. Um, I love Divakar Banerjee's films. I love Shanghai. I love Vikramaditya Motwani's film Udan. Lutera was beautiful. Uh, and, Heather was a beautiful film. Makbul is a beautiful film. In Kannada, the industry that I work in, Ulidauru Kandante by Rakshit Shetty. It is the story is set in Udupi. And Rakshit is our producer also. He's the producer of Abracadabra. And I love that film. Uh, and we had some great directors, a couple of decades back in our industry. Shankar Nag, who did Malgudi Days. Uh, I love his feature films by the name of Accident, and then there's another called Minchina Ota. And then I had this vague memory of Malgudi Days from childhood. But during the COVID lockdown, I went back and watched Malgudi Days again. And now that you're trying to make your film, you realize what an achievement that was back in the time when it was done and shot on film. I was There's this discussion we were having with our ADs about the background action that happens in Malgudi Days. The extras that are moving in the at the back of the scene in Malgudi Days. And you look at it and you're at awe of what has been achieved. So like I mentioned, all, it's from different places. I'm consuming things from different places, different directors. So again, no one point or no specific favorites.
Sir, last question is, if somebody wants to become a filmmaker, what advice would you give to them, sir?
I would say just be very clear what you want to do being a filmmaker. I mean, why you want to be it. Uh, you know, because that is going to decide what kind of films you want to attempt. That could be a wide reason, a wide variety of reasons why you want to make that film. So be very clear in your mind of why you want to make it.
Sir, thank you so much for joining. I've seen the film and I really, really loved it. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. It's my pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Adam. It was a pleasure talking.
Thank you so much.